Hello, this is Matt. Uh, Decided to do my project on the system identification of aircraft structure data, which was provided on LMS. So the goal of this project was to utilize pretty much everything that we've learned all throughout this semester to analyze the signals of an aircraft structure, and then compare these signals to identify possible damage indicators or areas of damage in the form of changes in natural frequency or damping ratio. I also wanted to compare the non-parametric versus parametric approaches of the time series approach to each other. So the data is a pretty big array of data. To simplify it for this project, what I did was I took one healthy signal and I compared them to 3 damage locations. And off to the right here, this was a project that Fotis did, or you did. In A, we have the overall aircraft structure. In B, what we see is the right wing and right flange of the wing. Point X is where the excitation signal was inputted. Point Y is one position of response measurement along the right wing. And point C, in picture C, point Z was the second location of response measurements. For this project, essentially what happened was along the wing here there were weights that were attached to the wing in order to simulate differences in or to sort of simulate damage in a sense. So what I did was I first normalized these signals with respect to their standard deviations and plotted their autocorrelations. That's spelled wrong. I'll have to go ahead and change that. And this way I knew that I wasn't dealing with white noise, and I was dealing purely with the signals itself of what I wanted to analyze. And for this specific project, the sampling frequency was 256 hertz with a sampling time of 0.0039 seconds. So for the non-parametric approach, I'm focused on FFTs, PSDs, periodograms, as well as Welsh-based PSDs, and finally the coherence. So for sensor Y2, which was placed on the right wing, I plotted the FFTs and corresponding PSDs for the healthy signal and the positions along the wing. Position 1 being 0 centimeters, so right at the root of the wing. Position 2 being 75 centimeters, which is almost at the end of the wing. And position 3 is 80 centimeters, which is right at the tip of the wing. I decided to choose those locations based off of the paper that you sent me, to see if I can try and indicate any sort of damage phenomena around these areas. So in plotting these, shows that there are frequency characteristics to examine, especially when looking at the PSDs and the amplitudes of the FFTs, as there are some pretty big spikes along the frequency axis. I did the same thing with sensor Y7, which was on the horizontal stabilizer in the back. And these signals are generally a little not as strong as sensor Y2, because this is with respect to the horizontal stabilizer. So these signals, the reason why these frequencies are a little different than sensor Y2 is because this is positioned on the horizontal stabilizer rather than the right wing. And these difference in frequencies, these different peaks, could be due to how the signal propagates throughout the whole entire aircraft structure. But again, you can still see that there are still some frequencies that could possibly be further analyzed. Next, I plotted the periodograms of both response measurements. Excuse me. And then for sensor Y2, you can see how the healthy signal compares to the, we'll put air quotes, damage signals. Seems to be a lot healthier or less magnitude than the position measurements. And this goes the same for sensor Y7. And again, you can still see here that there are some frequencies in here that are worth taking a look at. Next, I plotted the Welsh-based PSTs for further non-parametric analysis. And as you can see from the PSTs, there are some pretty high peaks and very sharp peaks, which kind of resemble very, very low damping. And there are some coupled, or it looks like there could be a coupled mode right around 20 hertz. And the same for sensor Y7. So pretty much everything I plotted together twice over with sensor Y2 and sensor Y7 with respect to their own positions. Y2 being on the right wing and Y7 being on the horizontal stabilizer in the back. And for this I used a window size of n over 8. N for this case was the sample size, which was 5,000 samples. And so the window size for this was 625. And again, the healthy signal is generally stronger than the possible damage locations along the aircraft structure. Next, I plotted the frequency response function for sensor Y2. This is where it gets a little interesting, because here you can see that the healthy signal is generally above the possible damage locations. As you can see here on the right side, I blew up the graph on the left from 35 to 60 hertz with the, I think that's yellow or green, I'm a little colorblind, so being the healthy signal and all the other signals being the possible damage locations. The change in magnitude for the possible damage locations could be due to the addition of the weights that were placed along the wing, and this could kind of point towards possible air quote damage with more weight being added to the wing. And again, for this I used a window size of 625 for n over 8. I did the same thing for the frequency response, or for sensor Y7. This one isn't as apparent in the change from the healthy to the possible damage locations, and this is most likely due to, again, the position of sensor Y7, with Y7 being on the horizontal stabilizer, so it's taking the output from the horizontal stabilizer with respect to the damage locations on the right wing. So that's why most likely why the output here for the damage locations are definitely noticeably different for sensor Y2, which is on the right wing, than Y7, which is on the horizontal stabilizer. Next, I plotted the coherence for the healthy signals, as well as all the possible damage locations. And as you can see, the peaks in the FRF for the healthy signal and the positions, they correspond to very low coherence, or drops in coherence for these signals. So that kind of shows that these peaks and frequencies might not be necessarily caused by the excitation signal, but maybe something intrinsic or a property of the wing, with this possibly being the result of adding the weights to simulate those damage locations, resulting in different natural frequencies or different magnitudes of frequencies for the right wing. And again, for this, the window size was pretty much held constant throughout this whole process. I found using this window size gave me pretty good resolution, so I decided to stick with that throughout the whole analysis. And again, here I just plotted the coherence for sensor Y7. Again, same thing. These peaks show they don't necessarily correlate. They have very low coherence with respect to the excitation input signal. And those correlate, the peaks correlate to the drop in coherence. All right, so next we're going to move to the parametric approach, and for this I decided to use an ARX model. We do have Xonoris excitation signal as our input. So we will have NA and NB model orders for this approach. And moving on from that, we'll go through the FRF of the ARX model and any possible change in natural frequencies or damping ratios. So for the ARX model, I used the Bayesian information criterion, and I plotted that. And for my final model order, what I found was for my model orders, NA and NB to be 48. One second. So with model order 48, this had the lowest Bayesian information criterion, or BIC. And I chose this. You want the lowest one because lower BIC, you'll have better predictability for your model. So that's why I chose for number 48. That was the lowest BIC for the range of model order range from 2 to 50. All right, so with the ARX model, with NA and NB of 48, I plotted the FRF, and again we still see that these peaks, just from eyeballing it, they kind of resemble the non-parametric FRFs. All right, so this one, this part was a little tricky. So for Fotis's project, what they had was they had a whole a matrix array of damage locations with healthy signals, and they also had, with those signals along the whole structure, they had a location matrix. I unfortunately was not able to figure out a location matrix. And so basically what I did for the natural frequency and damping ratio was I chose just one spot. This spot being location 1, which was 0 centimeters, which is right at the root of the right wing. And I plotted, or I found natural frequency and damping ratio for that specific location right there, or that mode. And what I saw was for the healthy structure, the healthy signal, the natural frequency was 4.85 hertz, the damping ratio of 4.8 hertz, 88 hertz. And these are local damping ratios and natural frequencies. Like I said, I only chose one specific spot. I believe in Fotis's or your research, you had an overall global natural frequency and damping ratio. And for this, I chose one specific spot. And so for the damage location, I found a natural frequency of 4.83 hertz, so negligibly smaller than the natural frequency of the healthy signal, but a damping ratio of 5.43%, which is higher than the healthy signal. And this, even though this is small, this could be due to any of those added weights, or added weights that mimic possible damage within the structure. If I were to be able to map the actual locations and figure out how to do global natural frequencies and damping ratios, these might have been a lot different, and I could have done it for different parts along the wing. That's definitely something I can look into for the future. All right, and so finally for the non-parametric versus parametric results, for model orders, for NA and MB orders of 48 for my ARX model, it very closely resembles the non-parametric result from the Welsh PSD. As you can see, it pretty much follows the general trend of the Welsh, or the non-parametric model. And again, I use a consistent window of n/8 or 625. So in conclusion, the non-parametric versus parametric approach checked out, especially with a model order of 48 and 48 for NA and MB. As you can see from the slide here, as it does follow the general trend. It does encapsulate these peaks in here, and as well as any valleys. The parametric model does get rid of some of the jagged edges or noise-ish contributions that the non-parametric result has. And so overall, I think this pretty much validates my model for for an ARX model. This also shows that time series methods for system ID can be used for damage estimation and analysis through changing from a time series data into the frequency domain. You can definitely pinpoint any frequencies of interest or in the forms of peaks that can later be analyzed and then can be characterized into natural frequencies and damping ratios that can further describe any sort of damage location or possible damage areas along a wing. And this is my works cited. I used that one picture from your research project or research page. And yeah, as you can see here, I used the slides from last semester's aerostructures class. All right, and that's it. Thank you very much.